Hello everyone, welcome back to World of Software Testing. So in the last lecture we have covered the software testing techniques such as white box testing techniques and black box testing techniques, that is BBT and WBT testing techniques. So let's collect some of the differences between these two techniques. So what are the differences between black box testing and white box testing technique? So the differences are very important in terms of interviews. So these are definitely going to be asked in the interviews. So you must be prepared and you must be knowing some of the differences between these two techniques, that is BBT and WBT. So let's go through some of the differences here. So these are the differences between WBT and BBT. So the first is that is white box testing technique have some other names such as clear box testing, glass box testing, transparent box testing and structural testing. So these are different types of names white box testing have. And the black box testing techniques is also called as data driven testing or the closed box testing. So this is the first difference actually. So this is not basically a difference, but we can definitely tell in the differences part in the interviews. The second is white box test is a method used to test the software taking into consideration its internal functioning. So internal functioning here means the coding part, that is the internal structure of the application, that is nothing but a coding. So white box testing is a method used to test the software taking into consideration its internal functioning. So to carry out the WBT, we must have knowledge of internal functioning, that is the internal coding part. And the black box testing techniques is a test that only considers the external behavior of the system. The internal structure, so here you can see the internal structure or working of the software is not taken into account. So in case of BBT, if you want to perform the BBT testing, so we don't need to have knowledge of internal structure or the working of software. So that is not required in case of BBT. So this is the second difference. The third difference is the WBT is a coding level technique used to check the correctness and completeness of the program. So this is nothing but a coding level technique. So here, as we mentioned, it is mandatory to have the coding knowledge or the programming language knowledge we must have, and we must know about the internal functioning. So this is used to check the correctness and completeness of the program. So this is nothing but a WBT. And if you consider the BBT, so BBT, that is a black box testing, is a build level technique, and which is used to check the functionality of the application. So with respect to the customer requirement. So here we don't need to care about the coding, what is coding there, what is the internal functioning of the or internal structure of the application. We just need to check the functionalities which are developed with respect to the customer requirement. So this is only the build level technique. The next, so this is the third difference. The next is the fourth one, that is it is carried out by the developer. So white box testing is carried out by the developers. So as we again mentioned, so to carry out the WBT, the developer or the tester must have the knowledge of coding language, and the coding language knowledge is having by the developer only. So the WBT is carried out by the developer, and the testing, that is a black box testing, is carried out by the test engineer, which check the functionality of the application with respect to the customer requirement. So this is the fourth difference we have covered. And the next is developer will check the presence of defect in the code. So this is very important. So here developer will check the presence of defect in the code. So they will perform some unit testing, and in the unit testing they will verify the code they have written, and they find out the errors or defects in the particular code. So they will check the presence of defect in the code, not in the application. Okay. The test engineer will check the presence as well as absence of defect in the code. So this is again one more point for the BBT. So here the test. So here in case of WBT, developer will only check the presence of defect. So he will check if there is a presence of defect in the code. But here in case of BBT, there is a black box testing technique. Test engineer will check the presence as well as the absence of the defect in the code. So he will perform the testing with the help of positive as well as negative scenarios. So for the positive and negative scenarios, we will again discuss in detail in the upcoming lecture. So just keep in mind, the test engineer will check the presence as well as absence of the defect in the code. That is, he will perform the testing with positive as well as negative scenarios. Okay, so this is the fifth point, that is the fifth difference between the WBT and BBT. The next is WBT is the most time consuming testing techniques. So this is most time consuming testing technique, and BBT is least time consuming testing technique. So this is one more difference we have between WBT and BBT. The next is WBT is comparatively more exhaustive than black box testing. So what happens? Mostly the developers run the repetitive test. So whatever the tests are already developed, so they will try running those same test cases in case of WBT. So that's why it is comparatively more exhaustive. Exhaustive means repetitive test or the same set of tests we are performing on the application, on the code here. So in case of WBT, it is applicable for the code. So that's why it is comparatively more exhaustive than the black box testing technique. And in case of BBT, it is less exhaustive as compared to the white box testing. So because the test engineers are reviewing their test cases or test scenarios on a release wise, they will review all the test cases or the test set, and based on the new features, they will update the test sets and they will perform those test cases or execute those test cases on the application, that is a modified application. So that's why it is less exhaustive as compared to the white box testing technique. This is the seventh difference we have between WBT and BBT. And the next one is, it is mandatory to have knowledge of programming. So as we have mentioned already, so to perform the WBT, that is the white box testing techniques, it is mandatory to have this knowledge of programming. So one must have the knowledge of programming language so that he can perform the WBT testing. And in case of BBT, we are just checking, we as a tester checking the functionality of the application with respect to the customer requirements, and this is done by the test engineers, and no knowledge of programming is required here, because we don't need to go inside the internal working or the internal structure of the coding or the application. So here in case of BBT, we don't need to have knowledge of programming. So these are the 8 differences we have covered in this lecture. So just remember here, WBT is also called as clear box testing technique, glass box testing, transparent box testing, and the structural testing. So there might be confusion between these names. So interviewer may ask what is glass box testing instead of white box testing. So that's why we must know all these different names for the WBT. Similarly, in case of black box testing, it is also called as the data driven testing or the closed box testing. So again, we must know all these names for these black box testing techniques. So that's it for this video. So again, these kind of differences are getting asked in the interviews. So we must be prepared well before going for the interviews. So you can remember any 4 or 5 differences out of this almost 8 differences we have, and that would suffice and serve the purpose of the interview. So thanks for watching this video. Please do subscribe our YouTube channel for such more videos on software testing concepts, and click on the bell icon to get the latest updates. So thanks for watching, and in the upcoming lectures we will dig further into the software testing concepts. Thank you so much.